Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to our beloved lecturer and fellow friends. Today, our group will be presenting on a topic that plays a huge role in shaping how we think, learn, and teach, which is creative and critical thinking in Islamic education. In a world that's constantly changing, it's not enough for students to just remember facts. They must also know how to question, analyze, and come up with new ideas. That's exactly what this topic is about. Helping our students think creatively, to solve problems, and critically to make wise decisions, both guided by Islamic values and principles. Before we begin, let me briefly introduce our team. We are Group 3, consisting of FARHAD, myself Irfan Hakimi, AFIQAH, HUMAIRA ADNIYYAH, ALIEYA RAFIDA, and NORWAJIHA. Together, we will explore how creative and critical thinking can be integrated effectively into the Islamic education classroom. Our presentation today will cover 5 main parts. First, we will explain the concept of creative and critical thinking. Next, we will look into the creative and critical thinking skills in Islamic education. After that, we will focusing on standard curriculum and teaching values across curriculum, also known as EMK, to show how these elements are aligned within Islamic education. Then, we will learn about application of higher order thinking skills or KEBAT in teaching and learning. And finally, we will explore how I think maps can be used as a practical tool to enhance students' thinking. Without further ado, let's begin our presentation with the first section, which is creative and critical thinking from Brother IRFAD FARHAD.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Ilfat Farhad bin Jeffrey. My metric number is 2227451. And today, my friend and I will be presenting about creative and critical thinking. So, in today's presentation, we will answer many questions about thinking. And the question are, why do people think? How does thinking work? Is it important? Can thinking be improved? How it can be improved? Can thinking be creative? Do emotions affect how we think? How do we know if we are thinking well? And today's, my friend and I will solve this question and answer it for all of you. So, give your full attention for this presentation, okay? Have you ever had to make a decision before about what to eat for breakfast? Or when you are missing the bus, about how to go to the school when you are missing the bus, you must figure it quickly. Yes, we all think thousands of times a day. But what exactly do psychologists mean by thinking? It is not just passively musing over something, but it is much deeper. Let's look at 4 brilliant definitions that will change the way you see about this mental process, which is thinking. The first is by Brunner. What's Brunner said? Brunner said that going beyond the information given. What does it mean? As an example, you are at a crime scene. You got 2 clues, and then you use the clues in order to draw the 5th conclusion based on only those 2 clues. You go beyond the basic information available, and this is how you solve the crime scene. You just only use the information that you had. That is what Brunner means. Going beyond, using the information given. And next is by Bartlett. Bartlett say that thinking is filling gaps in evidence. Well, it is similar, almost similar to first definition, but it emphasizes skill. Have you ever read a book with a plot twist? The author deliberately leaves gaps, and your brain's job as the reader is to fill those gaps using your own logic and experience. So thinking is the skill of connecting the missing dot, which is, as you know, many film, many books. There's always a mystery, and when there's mystery, we often to predict what happened. We try to predict what happened. That is the meaning by the filling gaps in the evidence by Butler. And the third one is from Newell and Simon. They say that searching through a problem space. Thinking is searching through a problem space. This is a more specific and technical definition. Think of your brain like a GPS program. When you set a destination, the GPS search for various possible routes. The problem space, which is the problem space, from your current location, which is the initial state to get there. Thinking is that process of systematic search for the best route through all the available options and obstacles, which is you want to go to that destination, and you have been given many ways to reach this destination, which is you think many ways to reach the destination. Like you are doing math problem, mathematics. You can solve one question with many ways, right? And last but not least is by Baron. Baron say that thinking is when doubt emerges, which is what we do when we are in doubt about how to act, what to believe, or what to desire. This definition is the easiest to grasp. Thinking is not always active. It is triggered by doubt. That's why thinking is when we receive question that make us doubt, that make us think. There's some question that is make us think. As example, if you have encountered a problem. When you start to think is when you start thinking how I should act about this problem, how I should solve this problem, like that, which is from the question you ask how to solve this problem. By that question, you must figure many things to solve that question, and that is the 4 definitions by our psychologists. And next is creative thinking. What is creative thinking? Creative thinking is basically means the ability to come up with unique and original ideas, especially when we are solving a problem. Some people call it creative problem solving because we use creativity to find the best solution. At the core, creative thinking is about looking at things differently. It is when we take information we already know and we try to see it a new way, from a new angle, or from a different point of view. When we do that, we usually discover new patterns or ideas that we didn't realize before. Now, creative thinking isn't just one style. There are actually a few types of creative thinking, and each one helps us think differently. First, we have divergent thinking. This is the type of thinking where we use when we are brainstorming. The goal is to come up with as many ideas as possible. No judging, no limiting. For example, if we want to plan an event, we just throw out every idea we can think of, which is we just throw out any idea we can think of. Second, we have convergent thinking. This is more logical, which is it is almost the same as divergent, but it is more explanation, which is convergent thinking is after we have many ideas from brainstorming, convergent thinking help us choose the best and most practical one. So divergent thinking is many ideas, and convergent thinking is pick the best idea. Third one, we have inspirational thinking. This one is fun because it is about imagining the best case scenario. We picture the ideal solution, the perfect outcome, and from there, we find a new way to solve the problem. Sometimes thinking about the best version helps us create a better plan. The fourth one, there is lateral thinking. This is when we let ideas flow step by step. We start with one small idea, and that idea leads to another and another, like a chain reaction, which is from this, we brought to this, step by step. It is a way of thinking that helps us come up with creative solution through a smooth flow of thought. And finally, we have aesthetic thinking. This one is about reframing the problem to see its beauty or value. Instead of looking at a problem as something negative, we look at what we can appreciate about it. It is like looking at a painting. You try to see the meaning behind it. So, in conclusion, creative thinking helps us open our mind, look at problem differently, and discover idea that others might not see. With divergent, convergent, inspirational, lateral, and aesthetic thinking, we can solve problems in smarter and more creative ways. Next is critical thinking. What is critical thinking? According to many scholars such as Holfish and Smith, critical thinking is described as the ability to question, to test our assumption, to recognize uncertainty, to examine and evaluate information, to reason logically, to reflect, and to make informed judgment. It also involves the ability to clarify and justify our decision or positions. In simple words, critical thinking means analyzing information objectively and drawing a rational conclusion. It helps us make decisions based on facts instead of emotion or bias. That is critical thinking. There are a few important parts of critical thinking, and I will explain the parts and type of critical thinking. The first is analytical skills. This means breaking down information to understand what is useful and what is not. For example, if your phone is overheating, you check the app's setting and usage to find the real cause. That's analytical thinking. And second is good communication. Critical thinkers can explain their ideas clearly and also listen to others. For example, during a group assignment, you present your reasoning clearly and discuss solution respectfully with your teammates, so that they can accept your suggestion and easily accept your suggestion, which is it means you have a good communication skill. You can convince people with your suggestion. And next is the ability to solve problems. This means identifying the issue, analyzing it, and choosing the best solution, which is, as you know, if you encounter a problem, you will identify the problem, what is the problem, and then analyze it, then listing the solutions that can be applied to solve it, and then you will choose the best solution from the solutions that you have give. Then asking thoughtful questions, which is asking the right questions helps us avoid assumptions and understand situations deeply. For example, before joining a club, you ask, what activities do you do? What skills will I gain? These questions lead to better decisions, which is, if you want to join a club, you must know what the club do. We don't usually join club just for fun without knowing what the club do, right? So you want to choose the correct club, you will ask what the club do. Asking the right question, thoughtful question. Lastly, open-mindedness. We all have biases based on our past experience, but critical thinkers are willing to consider different perspectives. For example, if you once dislike a subject, but a new teacher used a better method. Being open-minded allows you to give it a fair evaluation. It's also the same as the four mazhab in Islam. As you know, all the imam have their own explanation about why they choose the hukum. It is not just based on their bias or what, but they choose it based on their explanation. They can explain why they choose the solution for a problem. So this means they think very critical. It is hard to be like them, okay? And in conclusion, critical thinking helps us question information, evaluate ideas, make logical decisions, and justify our conclusions. By practicing analytical skill, clear communication, problem solving, thoughtful questioning, and open-mindedness, we can make decisions that more accurate and meaningful. So then continue with my friends. Irfan.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. My name is Muhammad Irfan Hakimi bin Muhammad Amri. My metric number is 2215233 and today I will be presenting on the topic creative and critical thinking skills in Islamic education. This topic is meaningful because Islam does not only encourage us to gain knowledge but also to understand, reflect, and apply that knowledge in our life. In today's world where information spreads quickly, some true, some false, students need creative thinking to produce new and beneficial ideas and critical thinking to evaluate what is right according to Islamic principles. Throughout this presentation, I will explain the meaning, importance, Islamic evidence, applications in the classroom, benefits, and challenge with solution related to creative and critical thinking in Islamic education. As you can see on this slide, it shows the meaning of creative and critical thinking. Creative thinking means thinking outside the box to produce new and original ideas. For example, students may use creativity to design posters, poems, or videos that deliver Islamic message in unique ways. Meanwhile, critical thinking means the ability to analyze, evaluate, and make sound judgments based on logic and evidence. For example, when students study Islamic history or current issues, they use critical thinking to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong, according to Islam. In Islamic education, both skills work together. Creative thinking helps students express and apply Islamic values in modern ways, while critical thinking ensures their ideas remain correct and guided by the truths of Islam. Together, these two skills help students understand and apply Islamic knowledge, not just memorize it. Now, let's move on to the importance of these skills in Islamic education. As shown on the slide, there are 4 key points. First, they encourage a deeper understanding of Islam. Instead of memorizing, students learn to reflect and understand why Islam teaches certain principles. Second, they connect knowledge to real-life situations. For example, students can relate Islamic lessons to their daily action, like being honest in exams or respectful on social media. Third, they build logical and ethical thinking. This means students learn to think rationally and make decisions guided by Islamic ethics. Before doing something, a student might ask, is this action pleasing to Allah? Like that. Lastly, these skills strengthen both faith, iman, and intellect, akal. When students think deeply and reflect on Allah's creation, their belief becomes stronger and more meaningful. At the bottom of the slide, there's a quote, Islam encourages us to think and reflect, not just memorize. This statement summarizes the true purpose of learning in Islam: to think, to reason, and to understand, not to follow blindly. On this slide, I've included two Quranic verses that clearly support the importance of thinking and reflection in Islam. The first verse is from Surah Ali Imran, verse 191, where Allah says, "They reflect on the creation of the heavens and the earth." This verse shows that reflection or tafakkur is part of our worship. When we think about Allah's creation, our faith becomes stronger. The second verse is from Surah Az-Zumar, verse 9, where Allah asks, "Are those who know equal to those who do not know?" This teaches us that Islam values knowledge, reasoning, and understanding. Both verses remind us that thinking critically and creatively is actually a form of worship because we use the mind akal that Allah has given to understand His sign and apply them in life. Next, we move to the slide about applications in the classroom. As shown in the table, there are examples under three topics, which is akhlak, ibadah, and current issues. For akhlak, students can use creative thinking to design a poster about good manners and critical thinking to discuss why manners are vital in Islam. For ibadah, creative thinking might involve creating a method to remember the step of prayer, while critical thinking helps students analyze the wisdom behind cleanliness and discipline. For current issues, students can make a short video about Islamic ethics or evaluate the use of social media from an Islamic point of view. Through these examples, teachers can make Islamic education more meaningful by allowing students to think, apply, and express what they learn creatively and critically. On this slide, we can see several benefits for students when they apply creative and critical thinking. The first one is improved problem solving and reasoning skills, which means students learn to find solutions based on logic and Islamic values. The second one is build confidence in expressing opinions. They feel more comfortable sharing their views in discussion. The third one is help students make ethical decisions, which means they can judge between right and wrong according to Islam. The last one is encourage curiosity and independent learning, which means students become more eager to explore new knowledge about Islam. At the bottom, there's a short reminder, which is think wisely, act ethically. This phrase summarizes that true Islamic thinking is when wisdom guides our actions and ethics guides our decision. Now, this slide shows the challenges and solutions in applying these thinking skills. On the left, the challenges include: first, students rely too much on memorization, lack of creative classroom activities, and fear of expressing ideas. These challenges are common in Islamic studies classes. Many students are shy to share opinions or are used to memorizing answers. On the right, we can see the solutions. The first, use group discussion and projects. And then encourage open-ended questions and apply HOTS, which is high-order thinking skills. These strategies make the classroom more interactive. For example, teachers can assign students to discuss Islamic issues, create projects, or use IT maps to correct ideas clearly. By doing so, Students learn not only what Islam teach, but why and how it applies to their life. Finally, let's look at the conclusion slide. The key points here are: first, promotes thoughtful and ethical learning. Second, build students who think, reflect, and apply Islamic values. Third, Islam values both the heart and the mind. This means Islam encourages us to balance emotion and intellect, the heart, qalb, and the mind, akal. At the bottom of the slide, there's a beautiful reminder. Creative and critical thinking brings us closer to Allah. This is not a Quranic verse, but a reflective statement, a summary that when we use our mind to understand Islam and act upon it, we are actually worshipping Allah with knowledge. Just as the Quran says, and do not pursue that of which you have no knowledge. Surah Al-Isra. This verse reminds us to think carefully and seek truth in all matters. So, to conclude, creative and critical thinking are not only academic skills, there are Islamic values that help us become better, wiser, and more faithful Muslim. Thank you from me. We continue to the next presenter.
Alright, thank you to second presenter. So my name is AFIQAH binti Zaidi. So I will continue with the topic standard curriculum and teaching values across curriculum, which is EMK. Alright, so do you guys know what is EMK? EMK is stand for the element merentas curriculum, which is referred to important elements that are integrated into all subject and learning activities in school. So it's very important strategy to build a balanced and harmonious individual, which is in intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, which is complete with the Jerisa, right? In line with the aspiration of the national education philosophy, which is FPK. So basically, EMK is not just academic knowledge, but encompasses with the value, skill, and attitude that enable the student to become the responsible, ethical, and competitive students in facing the global in 21st centuries. So basically, in a simple way, EMK or Elemen Merentas Curriculum, in a simple way, in Malay, Elemen Merentas Curriculum ni sendiri adalah salah satu pelajaran yang bukan pelajaran yang baru, but dia adalah salah satu elemen yang perlu guru-guru masukkan sekali dalam pembelajaran, which is in all the subject that the teachers teach lah. Right, so for example, untuk kita mudah more understanding, I give some analogy in Malay, which is elemen merentas curriculum ni adalah sebagai salah satu macam rempah ratus dalam masakan seorang guru. Masakan tu adalah subjek yang dia ajar, dan EMK ni adalah rempah ratus. Maksudnya rempah ratus tu adalah sekiranya ada, dia akan jadi lagi sedap lah, macam tu kan kalau dalam masakan. Tapi kalau dekat dalam pembelajaran, kalau ada dalam subjek tu ada rempah ratus yang guru tu includekan sekali, makanya benda tu akan jadi lebih mudah difahami lah, begitu. Tapi sekiranya elemen merentas kurikulum ni terlebih ataupun over the limit, which is dia akan menjadi macam kecairan maklumat pula. Jadi macam rempah ratus kalau dalam masakan, kalau terlebih tak sedap, kalau terkurang pun tak boleh. Jadi dia kena just nice je. So this is EMK adalah elemen merentas kurikulum ini memang sangat penting, tapi tidak boleh terlampau over, and tak boleh juga less the in the subject. Alright, so I will continue with the what is the element in element merentas curriculum. So I will continue after this. Alright, so next, this is the element merentas curriculum. So basically, element merentas curriculum, we have before this we have six element merentas curriculum in KSSR. Before 2017, we use six element, which is bahasa, sains dan teknologi, teknologi maklumat dan komunikasi, persekitaran alam sekitar, patriotism and nilai murni. But after semakan KSSR 2017, elemen merentas curriculum, additionally we have another four elements, which is creativity and inovasi, pendidikan kewangan, kelestarian global and keusahawanan. So basically, now elemen merentas curriculum we have 10, which is consists all of the elemen from bahasa, sains, teknologi, teknologi maklumat dan komunikasi, persekitar alam sekitar, patriotism, nilai murni, creativity and inovasi, pendidikan kewangan, kelestarian global and keusahawanan. So when the teacher teach the student the subject, for example, the teachers teach the student about the Islam education, pendidikan Islam kan. So they integrate tu with the element merentas curriculum, which is maybe pendidikan kewangan, kelestarian global, or maybe the teachers integrate with the nilai murni. So I will continue after this with the example. How can the teacher integrate the element merentas curriculum in their subject? Alright, so I will continue with the differences EMK in KSSR and also in KSSM. So KSSR is stand for the primary school and KSSM is stand for the secondary school. So the level of learning EMK, which is focused more on the fundamentals of learning and the introduction of value and basic skill. So this is for the KSSR for the primary school. But in KSSM or in secondary school, it's focused more on the application of the EMK itself, or the subject and the application and the skill development and also the deeper challenge. So for the goals in primary school is to develop students who are more disciplined, have good morals, and master in a basic skill for a daily life. But in a KSSM or in secondary school, the goal is to produce the student who are can prepared to face the global challenges with a soft skill and technology and also the value. So there is a several differences applying the EMK in KSSR and also in KSSM. Alright, next, so this is several examples of the cross-curricular elements or element rentas curriculum that can be applied in Islamic education. So the first one is element of nilai murni or moral value. So in Islamic education, when the students studying the topic of adab towards maybe their parents, their teachers or neighbors, the teacher will emphasize the value of the respect, love, responsibility and the core teaching of Islam, not just for a theoretical knowledge, but it also in what we call in also not about the theory, but it's also can include the value and it maybe can apply towards their daily life. Alright, so the second one is in creativity and innovation or creativity dan inovasi. So maybe in Islamic education, which is in the topic of ibadah or worship, be in prayer, ablution, or wudu, the student maybe can create a flow chart or 3D wudu model, which is this is some innovation that is very simple and interesting to help their peers or their other friends to understand the step how wudu can it be lah. Right, so from the 3D wudu model, it's maybe can get more deeper understanding on the subject itself or on the topic itself. So that one is the environmental sustainability or kelestarian alam sekitar. So in the topic of adab towards nature, so maybe the teachers can links or can integrate Islamic teaching on maintaining the cleanliness tahara and avoiding the wastage in with environmental sustainability and global sustainability. So as we all know that tahara is very what we call is very important in Islam, right? Okay. So the last one is the how can some example from the Islam education that we can include the EMK in science and technology, which is when we studying the Aqidah, oneness of Allah or greatness of creation. The teacher can connect the creation of the universe, the human body or natural phenomena with this specific apa ni the phenomena with the scientific evidence to strengthen the faith in Allah power. So in Malay we can say that apabila kita belajar bagaimana penciptaan manusia, contoh dalam pendidikan Islam kita belajar bagaimana manusia itu diciptakan, we can across the curriculum we can also include the science element, the scientific element, bagaimana manusia itu diciptakan. Kita diciptakan daripada segumpal darah, bagaimana darah itu terbentuk, bagaimana penciptaan manusia dan proses penciptaan, the process of the how Allah create the human. So that thing it can really help the understanding the topic lah, right? So it's some several example element of element matters curriculum that when can we apply in Islamic education. Alright, so next, the importance of EMK. Actually, we have more than four, but I state four only. So the first one is integrate universal values and essential skills in all areas of learning. Alright, so the second one is it can help the students to develop the soft skills such as the communication, leadership, and critical thinking. So the third one is to form the student who are knowledgeable, morally upright, and prepare for the future changes and the challenges. And the lastly, it can from the EMK itself, it can support active learning that involve student holistically rather than just listening and copying the information. So I hope all of you can gain some knowledge. What is EMK about? Alright, so that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before that, my name is HUMAIRA ADNIYYAH binti J. Ismail. My metric number 2212868. Okay, now we move to the next topic. Okay, what the topic? Okay, the topic is application of higher order thinking skills. HOTS or KBAC. Okay, now, have you ever heard about that topic? Okay, we let's we study about that. Okay, let's go. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Okay, what is higher order thinking skills? Okay, I will explain to you. Okay, HOT is also known as K, but refer to the ability to apply knowledge, skills, and values in reasoning and reflection to solve problems, make decisions, innovate, and strive to create something. Okay, as we know that HOTS means the ability to use knowledge, skills, and values to think deeply. It helps us to solve problems, make decisions, be creative, and innovate, not just memorize the facts. Okay, for example, Okay, I give the example. Uh, as a Muslim, you know that we read the Quran, we memorize the Quran. Okay, instead of just remembering a Quran, we must to apply what Allah says in the Quran in our daily life instead of we just remember it and not apply in our daily life. So after this, what Allah says in the Quran, we apply it in our daily life. Okay, next, in Islamic education, Kibat especially refer to the ability to think critically, analyze information, and to apply knowledge in a meaningful way in order to understand and interpret Islamic teachings. Okay, in Islamic education, Kibat or hot means thinking critically and meaningfully about knowledge, not just knowing it, but understanding and applying it to interpret Islamic teaching. Okay, I will give you an example. Okay, when we learn about zakah, charity, we think about how this concept. Sometimes we think the zakah, how this concept can help reduce poverty in society today. That is, we think critically, deeply. Okay, understand? Okay, next, proceed to the next subtopic, which is understanding HOTS. Okay, this pyramid show different level of thinking scale from the easiest to the hardest. Okay, let's go step by step. Okay, the first one is remember. Okay, remember this is the basic level of thinking skills. You just recall the facts or information. Okay, for example, remembering the 5 pillars of Islam. Remember that. Okay, next, understanding. Second one is understanding. We explain or describe the meaning of something. Okay, for example, we explain why uh, Muslim must perform the salah. Okay, next, the third one is apply. Okay, you use the information in new situation. Okay, you use what you know in a new situation. Okay, I give you an example. Okay, uh, in the class, we using the Quranic verses to solve a problem at school. Okay, next, the fourth one is analyze. Okay, analyze. We draw connection among ideas. Okay, I will explain. You break information into parts and see how they are connected. Okay, for example, comparing the story of Prophet Muhammad SAW with lessons about patience in our life. Analyze. Okay, next, evaluate. Evaluate. You make judgment or give opinion based on evidence. Okay, in here justify a stand or a decision. Okay, for example, we decide which action shows better Islamic behavior and explaining why. We evaluate that. Okay, the last one, the hardest one, the highest one is create. Okay, create. You produce a new or original work. Okay, this is the highest level. Okay, you produce something new. Okay, for example, you write a short story that show the value of honesty in Islam. Okay, okay. Next. Okay. So now we proceed to the application of HOTS in Islamic education subject. Okay, the first subject is in Quran and Hadith. Okay, so this slide shows how higher order thinking skills can be applied when we study Quran and Hadith. We use different levels of thinking, from applying knowledge to creating something new. Let's go through them one by one. Okay, the first one is application. We apply. Okay, focus on interpretation, understand the true context of verses. Okay, at this level, students focus on understanding the true meaning of Quranic verses or hadith and apply it in real life. Okay, for example, when learning about passion, sabr, students think about how they can practice passion when facing a problem at school or at home. Okay. The second one is analyze. Real information to fit the topic. Okay, here the students analyze verses or hadith by finding the main ideas and seeing how they are connected. Okay, for example, when learning about honesty, students look at several hadiths and compare how each one teach honesty in different situation. Okay, next. Evaluating. Choose a point of view based on arguments. Use other knowledge to support belief. Okay, at this stage, students give opinion or judgment based on evidence from Quran and Hadith. Okay, for example, students may discuss whether a certain action is considered good or bad in Islam, and support their answer with verses or hadith. Okay, the last one is create. Okay, state interpretation of verse or hadith, communicate orally or in writing. Okay, this is the highest level. Students use what they have learned to produce something new, either in writing or speaking. Okay, for example, students create a short story or a poster based on the moral lessons from a hadith or verses Quran, such as kindness, forgiveness. Okay, understood? Okay, okay. Proceed to the next slide, which is the slide shows us how we use higher order thinking skills in the subject of fixed jurisprudence. Okay, fixed is not just about remembering the rules, it is about deep thinking. to solve the new problems we face today. Okay, we move to the levels in the brain. The first one is application. Application, which is seek information from authorities, books, or field or consult experts in the field. Okay, example, you learn about the role of water ablution when you visit a country with very cold weather. You apply that rule. Is it okay to use snow instead of running with water for wudu? Okay, you apply that knowledge. What have you learned? Okay. Second one is analyze. Analyze arguments from different perspectives. Understand the implication of different opinion. Okay, for example, you want to give a sadaqah. Okay, analyze two ways. Option one is you give the money. Second one is you buy the food and give that food. Okay, you think about what the poor person needs more, whether money or food, and what the implication are for each matter. Okay. Okay, the third one is evaluating. Choose a viewpoint based on available evidence and reasoning, justify with supporting arguments. Okay, for example, there is a debate about whether it is permissible to drink a new kind of energy drink. After analyzing the ingredients, it is harmful. Does it contain alcohol? You evaluate the evidence and conclude that. Okay, the last one is creating. Establish new rules based on Quran and Hadith. Communicate orally or in writing. Okay, for example, the Quran give rules for inheritance. Nowadays, people use digital asset. The scholar must create a new ruling or a new framework to decide how these modern digital things should be inherited based on fundamental the rules of Quran. Okay, conclusion is HOTS in fix means we move beyond just remembering facts. We train ourselves to analyze a new situation. Okay, we evaluate the different option. We create solution. Okay, that's all. We move to the next slide. Okay, next. Move to the next slide. Okay, this slide shows how we use higher order thinking skills in the subject of Aqidah theology. Okay, Aqidah is about how our core beliefs. We need words not just to memorize these beliefs, but to defend them, understand them deeply, and apply them to the modern world. Okay, we move to the first one is application. Application, which is consult authoritative books of creed or consult experts in the field. Okay, for example, okay, we learn the basic fact about angel. Like when you see a movie that show an angel with wings but performing evil acts, you apply your knowledge to recognize that the movies contradicts Islamic belief or not. Okay, next. Move to the second one is analyze. Okay, analyze. uh, is understand different opinions, consider them from the correct context. Okay, for example, when people discuss the concept of qadar, qadar, okay, they are often confusing ideas like, if God decided everything, why should I try? Okay, you analyze the issues by separating the concept, which is the first one is God's eternal knowledge, and second, man's free will to choose action. You break down the complex topic into understandable parts. Okay, okay. The third one is evaluating. Okay, evaluating is explain beliefs verbally or in writing. Okay, for example, you hear a new theory that says heaven and hell are just state of mind, not not really physical place, real physical place lah. Okay, you evaluate this theory against the clear verses of the Quran. You judge that the theory is incorrect. Okay, okay. The last one is creative. Make conclusion or decision or belief. Communicate orally or in writing. Okay, for example, if God is okay, some of your friend ask you, if God is all powerful, can He create a rock so heavy that He cannot lift it? So you must create a logical answer or conclusion to clearly explain whether what the answer, you make the conclusion decision for the answer based on your akidah. Okay, okay. Conclusion is, by using heart in akidah, we move from being passive learners to becoming an active defenders of our faith. We learn to analyze arguments, evaluate conflicting ideas, and create strong. Okay, okay. Next, we move to the next slide, the last one, and not the last slide for me. Okay, okay. Now we move to the last slide, which is the application of higher order thinking skills in the study of akhlaq, or means ethics and morals. Okay, okay. The first one is, we can see that the application of hearts in akhlaq through the upper four levels. The first one is application. What is the application? Refer to the authoritative books of morals, consult experts, apply good practice of Islamic values. Okay, okay. For example, okay, student, they learn about the value of amana. Okay, and they must apply that amanah, honesty. You must apply that daily life. Okay. Okay. The second one is analyze, understanding the wisdom behind good and bad practice, sunnah and forbidden. Okay, for example, the sunnah recommended practice of sleeping on the right side. Okay, and the student analyze, researches the scientific benefits of that sleeping position, connecting the religious teaching to its practical. Uh, Instead of just following it blindly, uh, they do the analyze for that sunnah. Okay, next, evaluating, make decision on conflicts and issues, justify decision based on Islamic values. Okay, for example, a student is faced with a group assignment where their friends plan to copy work from the internet. Okay, okay, the student critically decides to refuse, then justify their answer, and then mm, and then the the yes, they must to just just ask the internet, of not answer, but and maybe the point that subject, and they evaluate that point, and and write as the answer. Okay. Okay, the last one is critique and innovate on morals and practice to follow, communicate orally and in writing. Okay. Okay, the last one is the example. Okay, a student noticed the local neighborhood is facing issues with poor community spirit. What they do, the student designs a new program that called AFIQAH in action, maybe, which is include enable community. That community must involve that brotherhood, and all that's innovative, integrating the Islamic value of social responsibility, brotherhood, cleanliness, cleanliness. Okay. The conclusion that applying what's in akhlaq transforms the subject from a list of rules into a dynamic framework for living. It can apply them, analyze their purpose, evaluate complex situation, and create a solution for a better. Okay, okay, understood. Okay, that's all from me. We proceed to the next presenter. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is ALIEYA RAFIDA. So for now, I will share with you guys about the methods and strategy for fostering HOTS, which is high order thinker skill, in teaching and learning activities. Our first powerful method is problem-based learning or PBL. The main idea is to replace traditional lecturers with a challenge. Instead of starting with a rule, we start with a complex, real-world problem that has no quick answer. Think of it like a puzzle that requires Islamic knowledge to solve. For example, in Islamic law, fiqh, a contemporary question might be, is buying a modern wine box where the contents are unknown permissible halal or forbidden haram? Okay, so to solve this question, students go through three steps. Okay, first step, they must analyze the transaction completely. Second, they evaluate it against core principles such as avoiding excessive uncertainty. Finally, they create a justified ruling or design a completely new and a compliant solution. This makes the learning process active and relevant. Our second method is bring morality into focus through case study. This where we present either a hypothetical or real life dilemma for the student to analyze and judge. The example here deal with Islamic ethics or ahlak. Okay, so imagine a student named Ali who witnesses a classmate constantly making fun of another student's family background. It is a clear moral test. We ask, what is the most ethical action Ali should take and why, according to Islamic teachings? So, the student must first analyze the whole situation, understanding the harm being done. Then, they evaluate the potential actions, such as speaking up, ignoring it, or reporting it, and justify their action using Islamic principle of preventing harm, showing empathy and standing up for justice. It prepares them for tough moral choices in their own life. Method number three is Socratic questioning. This is simply using a series of clever, open-ended questions that challenge assumptions and force students to dig deeper into a concept. If we are teaching Islamic creed, which is Aqidah, we might focus on the concept of trust in God or tawakkul. A Socratic dialogue might begin the class with a question like, if you truly trust in God to guide your life, why it is necessary to study hard for an exam? This probing question push students to clarify their assumptions about faith and effort, link related concepts together, and apply their theological understanding directly to real life actions, making their faith deeply personal and practical. Next, we have discussion and debates. This is how students learn to argue their position in a structure, evidence-based way, using only Islamic sources to back them up. It is about building scholarly rigor. In Islamic history, a perfect debate topic is a famous early treaty, such as Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Students must argue a motion. Was the seemingly unfavorable treaty a necessary and acceptable price for the long-term strategic advantage it gave the Muslim community? This requires intellectual bravery. So the student need to break down the treaty clause by clause, then weigh the costs against the benefit to argue their case effectively, and finally construct a clear, evidence-based argument that synthesizes different historical facts into one cohesive position. Method 5 is project-based learning. This involves a long-term, comprehensive project where students create a tangible product. It is all about in-depth research and the synthesis of information. For a subject like Tafsir Quran, students can be tasked with creating an environmental responsibility campaign based on the teaching of specific surah. This takes them far beyond simple recitation. So, what has element in the specific action? Firstly, they must analyze the chosen verses, interpreting their meaning regarding natures and resources. Then they synthesize and create a final cohesive message and campaigns. This could be professional posters, a school video, or a detailed presentation for the wider community. The sixth method is textual analysis and source comparison. This is especially important for subjects like hadith study, where authenticating and comparing sources is critical, which teach students to become expert source critics. The techniques involve two steps. The first one is textual analysis. Textual analysis breaks down religious texts to understand context, linguistic nuances, and deeper meanings, while source comparison is then used to analyze different interpretations of historical accounts to identify consistency, bias, and reliability. Okay, so for the example, students are presented with different versions of a popular hadith. They must critically examine both. This involves looking closely at the chain of narration, which is sanad, and the text itself, which is matan. Then they compare the two versions to decide which one is considered more authentic, stronger, and why. They apply technical criteria to analyze and evaluate the authenticity and implication of the text, moving beyond simple memorization to truly understand the methodology used to preserve and verify Islamic tradition. Finally, we have role playing and simulation. This is a powerful, active way for students to step into a contemporary or historical role and practice making ethical decisions under pressure. A simple scenario could be a student finds a lost wallet in the school hallway. They have to act out the decision making process in real time. Okay, so for this specific activity, the student need to analyze the ethical dilemma of finding lost property versus the temptation to keep it. Then they evaluate their actions against Islamic teachings on honesty, which is amanah, and the prohibition of stealing, considering the emotional and potential consequences of each choice. It makes abstract ethics immediately concrete. Okay, so for the conclusion, these seven methods are not just classroom tricks. They are a complete curriculum strategy designed to push students to think, apply, and create. By consistently engaging with real dilemmas and critique sources, we are equipping them with the practical wisdom to navigate the modern world successfully. Okay, thank you for your time. I will pass to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. Have you ever wondered how we can train our minds to think more creatively and critically? Well, today I'm going to share something powerful yet simple, which is I think math, known as innovative thinking. These visual tools are not just organizing our ideas, but for shaping how we think. Next, let's take a look on the two different samples but have the same information, which is about the benefits of reading. The first one, we can see how long the paragraph is and take time for students to read and extract the main points from the paragraph. However, the second one is more easier for students because the information is in the visual mind map and more engaging rather than the first one. In today's education systems, especially with the emphasis on HUDs, students are expected to analyze, evaluate, and create. But how do we guide them to do that effectively? That's where the I think maps comes in. They are a graphic organizers that help us visualize our thoughts and making the learning more meaningful and engaging. In general, there are 8 types of I think maps, but today I will share to you about 5 types of I think map only, and each of them have a unique purpose. So let's explore one by one. The first one, we have circle map. Second, we have bubble map. Third, we have double bubble map. Fourth, we have tree map. And lastly, we have a breeze map. Firstly, the circle map. What does the circle map help us do? It helps us define and brainstorm around central idea. For example, you will be teaching a topic about fruit. So you will put the topic at the center of the circle, center of the map. And for the second one, the second circle, the bigger one, you will put the context related to the topic, which is you can put the image of the fruits, which is the mango, the banana, strawberry, and so on. Secondly is bubble map. Let's say the topic is about a good teachers. So this map, which is bubble maps, is a suitable one to describe the good teacher characteristics. So these maps build a descriptive vocabulary like trustworthy, adaptability, and so on. Thirdly, double bubble map. It functions to compare and contrast the ideas. This one is great for critical thinking. For example, comparing fish and frogs, both living in the water, but frogs also live on the land. With this I think map, students learn to identify similarities and differences, which is the key in analysis. Why comparing is important in thinking? Because the students will see the distinctions and connections clearly. Next, a tree map. These types of I think map is the most common among teachers and students because tree map helps students to organize information logically. We can see clearly that the category of food can divide into 3, which is fruit, meat, and vegetable. And below of each categories, we can add some examples. So how does this map support critical thinking? It trains students to categorize and sort ideas systematically. The last one is a brace map. This map functions is showing the part to whole relationships of the object. So let's take a recyclable item like glass bottle, and you break it down into parts, which are the body, the cap, and the label of the bottle. Then you go deeper into each parts of the bottle to identify the smaller components. This maps is useful in development of critical thinking. If the students are learning recycling, they can analyze which part of the bottle are recyclable and which are not. So, why we should use I Think Map? Here are some benefits for the students and for the teachers. For the students, it can help students improve their thinking skills, and it also can help students with memorization and understanding, and it can make a learning fun and meaningful, and also it can build confidence in expressing their ideas. For example, in classroom, a student who use I Think Map often perform better in group discussion and written tasks because they already organize their thoughts visually. For the teachers, I Think Map also can make teaching easier and help check students' understanding. I Think Map also can encourage creative teachings and support modern learning goals. This can show that I Think Map contributes to the cognitive development of the students and also can enhance the teaching method of the teachers effectively. Of course, there are challenges. Some students lack of understanding of thinking maps. They are unfamiliar with visual tools like tree maps, bubble maps, double bubble maps, and etc. Students weak of higher order thinking skills, they tend to memorize facts rather than analyze, evaluate, and create new ideas. For them, creating I Think Map take more time than answering standard questions. For some teachers, not all teachers receive proper training on I Think concept and practical application. They find it challenging to adapt thinking maps to certain topics, especially the abstract ones. Teachers may have more pressure and workload because they need to prepare additional materials, and heavy workload can reduce focus on I Think Map implementation. However, with continuous professional development, engaging activities, gradual integration, and digital support, these I Think Maps can become a natural part of teaching and learning. For example, having regular workshop and training for teachers, use games, quizzes, and creative projects to motivate students. Start with the simple maps before moving to the complex one, and use interactive apps to design I Think Maps easily. Time to time, the challenges that faced before will be reduced and will make the impactful changes for education generally. To conclude, creative and critical thinking are essential skills that help students to solve problems, make decisions, and think innovatively. Through standard curriculum, these skills are integrated across all subjects to ensure a holistic learning experience. The application of higher order thinking skills are encourage students to analyze, evaluate, and create new ideas, moving beyond the basic understanding. Tools like I Think Maps support this process by helping students organize and connect ideas clearly. Together, these elements build confident, thoughtful, and future-ready learners. With that, this is the end of our presentation. That's all from us. Thank you. So, let's proceed to the exercise that we have sent to you in a WhatsApp group.